this is an interesting arena because, as we've talked about with other stories, the sensors are out there in so many more ways. You guys are really focused principally on the phone, though, I think. Is that fair to say?
Actually, if you look at the Strava solution, we call it cross-platform, because if you experience it, we both have web services, so actually quite a bit for someone who's on a tablet if they're not in activity. But then we also have our mobile apps, where when you're in activity, when you're riding your bike or you're running, you would then use Strava. So part of our focus is to actually create the network or the platform so that you have access to your information regardless of where and what you're doing.
And you have partnerships with like Jawbone, with Google Glass. What devices are you on?
So, literally dozens of devices. We have our app, as Cory mentioned, that you can track your runs or rides, but there are everything from Google Glass to Pebble to Garmin devices. We just launched on Samsung their Gear 2 device. The idea being that we want to take that data, regardless of where it's coming from, and provide some context. As you mentioned, we want to provide some motivation, and it's a great way to do it.
Are you finding that any device works better than the other? I mean, you know, is a wristband better than glass? Or
well, we have a strong preference for our own tracking device, just because we understand our specific athletes. So Strava is also very focused on a particular area of the market. We support runners and cyclists today and triathletes. And so based on that, we're able to create a tracking device that really meets their needs specifically, versus at the other end of the spectrum, people who just need something to track calories or something like that.
I've personally found that I'm the most fit when I'm completely anal about tracking my workouts, whether it was a swim team in high school or triathlon training that I mean, that's how I learned to use Microsoft Excel. And now I can do it in very different ways with these devices, with your app and stuff. Is that typical of athletes, though? Or is there, I feel like there's two kinds of athletes. There's people who just work out, and then the geeks, particularly cyclists, who want to measure everything.
So, Cory, great quick history with Strava. We actually, our co-founder, Michael, and I, we met on the crew team at Harvard. And we had this sort of built-in motivation that came from competing every day, not just against other teams, but your own teammates. And then you graduate and poof, that motivation was gone. So in many respects, Strava, when you look at our mission, it was to just simply motivate and entertain that athlete once you have a busy life out there. And by having that data available and also that connection with other athletes, even if it's virtual, there's a social component that's really important here.
How do you get someone like me to, you know, overcome this gigantic barrier to entry? I'm so busy, I don't have time. I don't even have time to set up the app. Yeah. How do you get someone like me on your platform? So,
a couple things that have happened. One is we recognize that there's a way in which we can find your friends. You actually often have social groups yourself that we pull those together. Part of what Strava did was to not make some new community, but recognize that communities already exist. So you might be part of a gym or a club, and there's opportunities to access that at Strava. And then we've done things like integrate with Instagram, so that if you're out and you're taking photos, pretty soon those Instagram photos are showing up on Strava, and now there's a community that gets built there, and the next thing you know, you're actually out running and training, and you hadn't realized that it happened.